Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. I'm your instructor Zia Hamid, welcoming you to English Grade 11 video lecture series. Students, today we will cover our students' learning outcome of our unit that we are currently on, and we have our lecture 7. Now, students, we will talk about reading comprehension. Yes, we have two learning outcomes today. Let's go through them one by one and break them down. So for reading comprehension, this SLO, the first one, demands us to cite strong and thorough textual evidence to support analysis of what the text says explicitly as well as inferences drawn from the text. So students, whenever we are having a reading comprehension passage, we read the passage thoroughly and then answer some questions. And one of them questions, or maybe more than one, are talking about citing evidence, to give evidence to support your answer. And this is what we mean by textual evidence. We will see what do we mean by cite and also textual evidence. And why do we do it? We do it to support our answer or the analysis that we are making based upon the text that we have just read. Now, this can be done on the text that has everything on the surface, that has everything explicitly mentioned. It means openly mentioned in the text, which you can easily quote or cite, and you can use reference, as well as the inferences. You need to find out the hidden meaning. You have to do analysis deep down to hunt down the point that is being discussed implicitly. So this works both for explicit and implicit information hidden in the text. Next is our reading comprehension SLO again, but this time we are going to talk about getting information, integrating or interpreting information from a variety of sources. Other than the text, other than the passage, we have other sources like maps, graphs, charts, and diagrams. We understand and study these different sources to get our information. It means that we study these sources. We read them like text, just like in the text, the way we get our information, knowledge. Similarly, we use our interpreting and integrating skills for all these different types of sources. And that's when we get our information that is available in these kind of sources. So I hope that these two learning outcomes are clear. The first one, we will analyze a text, anything that is written. And for the second one, we are talking about graphs, charts. We are talking about bar graphs, charts, diagrams, and all these different kinds of sources. Now, this also falls under our reading comprehension clearly. Now, let's move on, students. I hope that you have understood the learning outcome quite well. Here goes your vertical linkage for extensive and extra information so that you can link your SLOs with the previous grade to know that this is a continuity according to the curriculum. The SLO numbers are also mentioned, so you can go and check them as well. Let's talk about a brainstorming session. So today, students, what are we studying? What is an evidence? And for the second part for the second SLO, can we gather information from sources other than a text? Have you ever tried studying something which is not a text, but you learned a lot from it? Yes, students, there are a lot of things like that, lot of different sources. And what do you think about evidence? Why do we need to give an evidence in our answer? Is it necessary? If the question requires you, then it is mandatory and it is must that you cite and you quote evidence from the text that you're reading to support your answer. This makes your analysis stronger and it cannot be denied because it is based upon the text. So, Some questions, dear students, are very easy to identify, like what is the name of the character, when was he born, and all these small easy level questions. But some questions are actually intertwined, they are intermingled with two parts or three parts. We need to break them down and analyze the question, understand the question, and then present our analysis. But we have to take help from the text and we have to quote the evidence, quote the reference in order to make our text, in order to make the answer that we are giving stronger. So I hope students you are clear about this, that how much important is evidence and how and why do we refer it in the text. Now let's talk about reading comprehension. Now when we are reading for understanding and to answer some questions that shows our understanding. Citing evidence. What do you mean by citing evidence? It means providing examples from a text to support your claims. If you are making a claim in your answer, then you must need some evidence from the text itself to justify your answer. So why do we do it? We justify our answer. We make our answer strong. And yes, now let's talk about the importance. Students, good readers and good reading comprehension, good readers are able to cite evidence by including a quotation or exact sentences from the text or paraphrasing the author's words or ideas. Yes, students, sometimes there are quotations, some dialogues, some figures, stats, or numbers that you can quote in your answer. So you can include quotations, you can include figures, stats, facts, and senses or any other data that is mentioned. Or you can quote exact sentences and then present your analysis from the text. And you can also paraphrase these two things in your own words and then justify your answer. So, students, this is why we cite evidence from the text. Now, cite means to give reference, to quote. Now, students, there is a strategy of reading comprehension. By using it, we can actually understand any kind of deep knowledge question and evidence citing question clearly. This is called RACE. R stands for restate the question, A stands for answer the question, C is for cite evidence, and E is for explain how the evidence supports your answer. It is as simple as it looks. So, by following this mnemonic RACE, we can actually, the first step is that if you have a question, then paraphrase the question or restate the question to break it down in order to understand it. Then we will answer the question. When we will start answering the question, we will look for evidence according to the question and then provide it in our answer in the form of paraphrasing, in the form of direct quotes, or even giving the exact statements but with our analysis. And finally, we will explain how the evidence support our answer. So following these four things, we can actually answer any kind of evidence citing question or question in the statement that demands our reference from the text. Now, keeping this in mind, let's move on. Let's learn that how we can break down the question easily. Here is an exemplary question. Do you think the children regretted their actions at the end? Give two pieces of evidence from the passage that support your answer. So students, let me ask you, what kind of question is this? Do we need to provide evidence or not? Of course, yes, because we have the keyword evidence mentioned in the question. Now, this question has two parts. First one asks us, do you think the children regretted their actions? And second part of the question demands us to give two pieces of evidence from the passage that support our answer. Now, here at this part, we are doing inference, and in the second part, we are telling that what shows your inference is true. You have to give explanation, follow the race method, that the strategy that we have studied. Restate the question, answer the question, cite evidence, and then explain. So RACE, is the mnemonic that we follow in order to understand the pattern and the whole strategy of answering such questions. Now, students, we are talking about inference. It means that it requires our critical thinking. Here before you, it's a poem by Robert Frost. As you can see, we have three questions over here. What do we do first? We read the text. He halted in the wind, and what was that? Far in the maples, pale but not a ghost. He stood there, bringing march against his thought, and yet too ready to believe the most. Oh, that's the paradise in bloom, I said, and truly it was fair enough for flowers. Had we but in us to assume in March such white luxuriance of May for ours. We stood a moment so in a strange world, myself as one his own pretense deceives, and then I said the truth, and we moved on, a young beech clinging to its last year's leaves. So this is a three-stanza poem by Robert Frost. You can actually understand it, read its explanation if you're having trouble understanding it. Then let's look at the first question. What season is it in the poem and how do you know? So let's look for some evidence that what is the season in the poem. So he halted in the wind. Let's circle it. And what was that? We have maples. They are pale but not a ghost. Now, March. Yes, and what else? So we have found a month mentioned. There is wind. So it can be the month of March. And how do we know? Because it is mentioned over here in the second stanza. So you can say that the season is windy and pale. The maple trees, they are pale and they are looking like a certain way. And the month mentioned over here is March. So you can prepare your answer and give your evidence. Second question is, what joke does the speaker in the poem tell his companion, and how do you know that it is a joke? So here, if you read the second stanza, connect it with the first one, you can answer this question and you can quote it directly from the poem. The third question is that how do the two men in the poem feel about the present season and weather? Now, the question here, in order to answer this, you have to read the poem again and prepare your answer. And you can also give evidence from the poem itself. So students, this is what we mean by supporting inferences with textual evidence. We are inferring, but we are also providing textual evidence. So this summarizes and this sums up our understanding of providing evidence when we are answering such questions. So apply the strategy of race and solve the given questions. Now students, we have over here a very short passage from J.R.R. Tolkien's novel Lord of the Rings, and it's very famous, and I would suggest and recommend you to read it as well as good readers and literature lovers. Now let's understand this. At the end, we have a question. So we will come to it, but first let's read the passage. Frodo looked at the ring. It seemed to burn with an inner light, and yet it was also dark and mysterious. He hesitated, and then he slipped it on his finger. As soon as he did, he felt a strange sensation wash over him. The world around him seemed to change, and he saw things that he had never seen before. So, this is about a character Frodo when he comes in contact with a magical ring. So, how does the ring affect Frodo's perception of the world? And the second part of the question demands us to cite specific evidence from the text to support your answer. So, students, this is your assignment, this is your task, that you read the question, read the passage again, and justify your answer according to the question and following the passage. Now, let's move on to the second learning outcome, talking about interpreting and integrating information from different sources. Now, these sources, they are available in our daily lives. We see them all the time in newspapers, in articles, blogs, and in our different texts. So, let's talk about what do we mean by interpretation. Interpretation is the ability to make sense of information presented in different formats. For example, maps, graphs, charts, and diagrams. So, we are first understanding, reading each and everything, every figure, every number, and every percentage in these different sources, and then interpret it in our own words. And what do we mean by integration? The ability to combine information from multiple sources to form a comprehensive understanding. So first we interpret and then we integrate, collect the information to provide our analysis. So it means that we are reading the non-text other than the other sources than the text, and we are gathering information. As simple as that. Now, students, here we have a graph and we need to extract information. The graph shows information about technology and technology usage in the US, in the United States over time. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features, make comparisons where relevant. So we have some lines in different colors and numbers as well. Now, how do we integrate and interpret the information? The blue color shows us that it shows us usage of the internet, usage of social media is represented by yellow, usage owning a smartphone is represented by pink, having broadband or internet provider at home is represented by green color, owning a tablet is with the gray color, and owns a smartwatch, so it is represented by black. First, we will establish these colors according to the given information. Now, this is the percentage of population. 25%, 50, 70, and 100. And here you see the year 2000, 2005, 2010, and 2015. Now, let's talk about using the internet represented by the blue color. So, 25% of population, we can write it somewhere, 25% of people from the total population in 2000, it was actually 25% of the people were using the internet. And in 2005, more than 50, 51 or 52% of the people started using internet. In the year 2010, it increased to a whooping 75%. And in 2015, it increased even more than 75. So it means that the usage of internet as represented by the graph is increasing. In 2000, it was Actually 25%. 25% people of the population were using the internet. And in 2015, it is now, at that time in 2015, it is 75%. And if you talk about 2024, and it is almost like more than 90%. Now, let's talk about, so we have gathered information from this graph. If we talk about usage of social media, in the year 2000, there was no social media and 0 or less than 25% of the people were using the social media. And in 2015, it became almost more than 50%, near to 60, 65 or 70. So by understanding the colors and by reading this graph over here and from this side, you can get so much information and you can study the graph and integrate and interpret your information. So we interpreted that internet usage, the usage of social media and all these other relevant things have increased over the passage of time. And now we can also interpret and integrate our passage, and even we can write a very good passage based upon this information. First, we will read the graph, understand it, get the information, write it down, and then we can create our analysis, an article, or even we can write a passage from it. So this is what we mean by gathering information other than from the text. Similarly, students, this is a bar graph. It shows the number of men and women studying engineering at Australian universities. Summarize the information in the chart by selecting and reporting the main features. Make comparisons where relevant. So these are the number of students studying engineering from 0 to 15,000, and we have data collected from 1992 till 2012. So men are represented by the color blue and women are they are represented by the color pink. And you have noticed very evidently and clearly that the studying of engineering is dominant by men over here. However, the women are also increasing, but there is a huge difference. So you can get your information from this bar graph. Here is a pie chart, and it represents how internet users aged 16 plus prefer to browse the internet or using the internet or the web. And browsing means surfing the internet, using it for different purposes. So this is the pie chart because it is like a pie. Now, the greatest number we see over here is 33%. So 33% of the total population likes to browse the web using their smartphones. 14% of them access it on a desktop computer. 19% of them access on a tablet. 30% of them on a laptop, and 4% on other consoles or devices or different gadgets. So it is very easy to follow the instructions and interpret information from different sources. Now students, we have over here two simulation links, one for each SLO that you can watch later on for additional information, and you can learn a lot from it. I hope the lecture is helpful for you in order to understand these two learning outcomes. First one is taking a passage and answering citing evidence-based questions, breaking them down, and then using some strategies that we have talked about and getting your answer. Now students, your task is to get a reading passage, more than one, and understand and break down the questions and then answer them. So next time when you have a question that asks you to present evidence or cite evidence, now you know what to do. You have to read the passage, underline, intonate everything, the important evidence, and use them in your answer as it is. You can use quotations, and you can also use other things, like paraphrasing or stating a sentence. And this way you can make your answer stronger. And this justifies the answer of the question as well. Now students, we have a worksheet over here. There is a passage about elephant seals. Read it and then solve the following questions. There's also a reading material available, and now all these resources will be at your disposal. You can get them like worksheet, presentation. Now students, I hope that you have understood it. I'll see you in the next video lesson with another SLO of a different competency. Till then, practice your understanding, practice these SLOs clearly, and solve as many passages, as many reading comprehension questions as you can, and especially the difficult ones that require you to infer and use your critical thinking. I'll see you in the next video lesson. Till then, take good care of yourselves. Allah Hafiz.